am Mrs. McKenna, and we are at Burgaw Middle School in Burgaw, North Carolina at summer camp. And I'm going to teach you guys how to make my favorite recipe, which is called Death by Chocolate. And I am known all over for my Death by Chocolate, because when I go to a party, I bring my Death by Chocolate, and I walk in the door and people go, "Did you bring the death?" And I say, "Yep, I got the death." And they see me walking in, and they follow me wherever the Death by Chocolate goes. So who here loves chocolate? Okay. You don't care for chocolate? Not your thing? But you like to cook, because you want to own a restaurant. So you will get something out of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is give everybody the recipe that I printed out, so that I'm hoping that you guys go home and you make this at home with your families. And you don't have to make it as big as I'm making it, but it's awfully fun when you make a big batch of it and you have it in your refrigerator and you can eat it for a couple of days. So you can follow along as I read this. This is a delicious dessert, and it sure is a crowd pleaser. It serves 12 or more people. You're supposed to make this dessert the night before. You put everything together, and you put it in the refrigerator, and you let it sit overnight. Why do you think we would let it sit in the refrigerator overnight?
Because it's chocolate.
Because it's chocolate, and
it will melt.
What happens in the refrigerator when something gets cold? It firms up,
Yeah.
right? So that when you're serving it, it's easier to serve. When making this dessert, it's all about presentation, because you want it to look pretty and you want it to look good. So this is very important that we start with a clear bowl. I've made it in glass bowls, but I found out that glass bowls don't travel very well, so it's better to make it in a plastic bowl because it won't break. And if you leave your bowl at the party that you were at, you don't have to worry about getting it back. So we're going to layer this dessert in a trifle, which means that I believe it's an old Irish word, trifle, and it means that it's a dessert and it's layered, okay? So there's all different kinds of trifles. There's trifles made with strawberries, kiwi, blueberry, but a trifle usually has some kind of pudding, some kind of cake, and usually some kind of fruit. So this is the first thing you will need. The second thing is, I like to make my pudding at home on the stove top. Did anybody ever make the kind of pudding that you actually have to cook and stir with milk?
No.
That's something I want you guys to do. Next time you're at the food store, I want you to buy some pudding that's called cook and serve. Okay, so that means you have to put it on the stove top, you have to add milk to the powder, and you stir it until it gets thick. And homemade pudding, there's nothing like homemade pudding. It's really, really good. But when you're in a pinch and you don't have a kitchen and you're doing a cooking presentation, you kind of have to cut corners. So today I bought the pudding that's already made, so we're kind of cheating there. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to make a chocolate cake after you make your pudding and put it in the refrigerator. I like the Duncan Hines Devil's Food Cake, and I like to make this in 2 pans. This is the size pan that I use. It's either an 8x8 or a 9x9, and I like the dark coated pans because it comes out nice and easy. So you can use a square or some of the cakes I made in a circle. So who has made a cake like this before from a box? Most of you. Okay, so you know when you're making a cake, you need to measure. All right, who knows what these are? Measuring cups, right? So a set of measuring cups usually has a cup, a half a cup, a third of a cup, and a quarter of a cup. So in this recipe for the cake, you're going to need 1 cup of water, 3 eggs, and a third cup, which is this one, of vegetable oil. So what you'll do is you'll put it all in a bowl, and you'll use either a hand beater or a standing mixer, and you use these things, and that's what actually, these are the beaters, and that's what mixes up the cake mix. And you'll follow the instructions. You bake your cake, and then you let your cake cool. So we've got the pudding, we've got the cake, and now we need the Cool Whip. So Cool Whip is the name of a product, but each store sells their own brand of Cool Whip. This is Publix's Cool Whip, so whatever kind, I don't like the low-cal one. If you're gonna eat this dessert, you're not gonna worry about calories. So we're gonna need 2 8-ounce Cool Whips, and then this is the secret ingredient. This is called Heath Bar Crunch, and it's like a candy bar, a toffee candy bar, and it's all little pieces. Another name for it is toffee brickle. And the flavor of toffee is almost like caramel. Have you guys ever had caramel? Okay, so that's what it tastes like. So when you put all of these ingredients together, it is like a party in your mouth. It's the best thing in the world. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. You guys have the recipe, you can follow along. Oh, I just wanna say, after you make this, you're gonna put it in the refrigerator overnight. You're gonna put a plastic cover over it. And when you're putting it together, it's about presentation. So we're gonna do layers. First, we're gonna do a layer of chocolate cake. Then we're gonna do a layer of pudding. Then we're gonna do a layer of Cool Whip, and then we're gonna sprinkle the toffee bits on the top. So what I did was I cheated, and I cut up one cake already in 1-inch squares. So I'm gonna put that on the bottom. Also, I wanna put my gloves on because I'm cooking for a lot of people, and when you wanna be healthy, you wanna do the right thing. So I'm putting some gloves on. Especially in COVID days, you don't want to be spreading germs. Okay, so the first layer is the cake. You can kind of mash it in there, so it's the first layer. Second layer is the Cool Whip. You want your Cool Whip defrosted, you don't want it frozen, so you're gonna let it sit overnight in the refrigerator so it gets soft. Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. The next layer is the pudding. So, we're gonna break these open. And we're gonna put the pudding on top of the chocolate cake. And we're going to be careful not to smear. I love that word. Do you guys know that word, smear? Yes. You don't want to smear the pudding all over the bowls. You want it to stay really neat. So I'm going to put the first 3 packages of pudding on top. These are always hard to open, especially when you got slippery gloves on. And you want it to go all the way to the sides so that when you see it from the side, you'll see it looks really neat and pretty. Okay, I got my first 3 puddings on. Now I'm going to put the Cool Whip on. And when you plop it in the bowl, again, you want to spread it out. And you want it really neat on the sides. It is like whipped cream. Who's made whipped cream, fresh whipped cream at home with a beater? That's something else I want you guys to try to do. Buy some whipping cream where they sell milk in the food store, and use your hand mixer and make some fresh whipped cream to put on some kind of a dessert. So you're going to spread this first container all over. Then you're going to layer it again. So this time I'm going to show you how I cut my cake up. Because it's a coated pan, I'm going to use a plastic utensil so it doesn't scratch it. And I'm just going to cut it into squares. Okay? Of course, I forgot something again. This is the fourth layer. Put this on top of the Cool Whip. This is the Heath Bar Crunch. Sprinkle just enough on there that you can see it from the sides. Then we're going to put the cake on top of that. How's it looking?
Good.
Really pretty, right?
Yeah.
Pretty and delicious. This is like perfect for this size bowl. And this will serve 12 or more people. When you're at a party, I always like to serve this myself because people tend to take a big spoonful of it because it looks so good, and then they realize how rich it is, and they can't eat it all. So you can always go back for seconds. So the first one, don't take too much. See if that's enough for you. Next one is pudding.
It looks like an ice cream sundae,
Kind of does. Yeah, you're right.
except the other way around. There's more fudge than ice cream.
One more. Again, you want it to go all the way to the edges so you can see it from the outside. And you don't want to smear it, you want it nice and neat. And you're going to put your Cool Whip on top of that. So here's this. And you want to bring it all the way to the edge. See how it's just enough to fill the bowl? Goes perfectly. So you want a nice smooth edge there. I've been making this recipe for most of my life. First time I ever had it was at a block party when I lived in New York. I was probably about 18 years old, and I had a taste of this, and that was it. I decided I loved it, and this was my go-to dessert all through my life. When I went to a party and everybody brought something, this is what I always brought. So there you go. The last ingredient is the Heath Bar Crunch. You just sprinkle a little on here. Oops. And here's your finished product. What do you think? Yummy? Looks good? Okay.